What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, reviewing today's Sinner's Sacrifice for Redemption. You know, English could be a little bit of a funny language sometimes. There are certain terms that people will use that are considered negative when they don't really have to be. For example, in general, if people are calling a game a ripoff or a clone, it's intended to be an insult, but I don't think that's always fair. Case in point, Sinner is a fantastic action RPG that's built to show off some really cool boss fights and skip all the useless filler that other games in this genre sometimes have. But it's also hard to avoid the fact that this is a hardcore ripoff of Dark Souls. I mean, almost every single part of it is just straight up copying that. And yet, rather than that being a negative, it's a huge positive, and part of the reason I got so deeply invested in this project. At the start of this game, we're given a short cutscene to show us why we're in this twisted, empty world, taught the buttons for about 30 seconds, and after that, you're completely left on your own for the entire rest of this adventure. The controls are identical to any other title you've probably seen that looks like this. You have a strong attack, a fast attack, a dodge, and a block. The big twist here, though, is that you only have 2 weapons at the beginning, and these are the only 2 weapons you'll ever be able to defend yourself with. But more on that later. Waking up in this strange place, you find before you several different creepy looking stones. Walking up and touching any one of these is going to immediately throw you into a challenging battle, but this is really only half the struggle. You see, while every one of these bosses is very different and quite tough to defeat, things only get harder from here instead of easier. In almost every role-playing game, there is an essential rule, which is that by beating things and going forward, you're going to eventually get stronger as time goes on. Beating enemies and progressing just means you're going to unlock more skills, weapons, and armor to make it so you take less damage. In Sacrifice for Redemption, it's actually the complete opposite. What I mean by this is that each boss that you're actually going against, you must first sacrifice a piece of yourself. Like, for example, one person curses you so that your armor is not nearly as effective, and every time you try and block, it's not going to do much. Or there's one that makes it where every time your stamina runs out in combat, you will actually stop and collapse for a full second. This makes it where, as you're going on, you have to make it so you're fighting harder and fighting smarter because you are not going to have luck on your side. This price being paid does have a small benefit though, which is that each time you manage to eliminate one of these giant monsters, it's going to give you a health boost. It's not huge, but it's certainly substantial towards the end of the game. But what's really important here is just the bosses themselves. In this game, it's actually pretty short. I mean, start to finish, beating this and the optional secondary mode, which is basically a boss rush, I actually completed everything in this game in about 7 hours. But the entire time was such a gleeful blast. As a Dark Souls fan, I really appreciate the fact that this game is trying to do something different while following in its footsteps. It plays a lot the same, and if you manage to figure out timing your dodge rolls or an enemy's weakness, you're gonna feel that nice rush, like when you manage to conquer that next big foe, but in a much more bite-sized way. So let's talk about these fights, because this is really what makes the entire thing so fun. I mean, really, that's why you're here. So each of the 7 bosses is very, very different. Just to highlight one and show you what I'm talking about, here's an early person that I took on that I thought was a little bit easier. Just, in general, I could understand what he was going to do and see his telegraphed movements before he finally struck. So obviously, he's like a 10-foot tall knight, and he has a huge shield. But as this fight goes on, he starts off just trying to swing his blade and catch you off guard, do a few jump attacks. But as this goes on, and he gets more frustrated, he'll start swinging his shield itself, trying to just smack you off the course, or something along the lines of actually summoning a bunch of little minions that are there to distract you from him and his barrage of attacks. As you whittle him down and land some nice hits into his weak point, he's going to start moving quicker and quicker in an effort to try and demolish you before he dies. A lot of bosses sort of act like that. Like, here's another one. When you're fighting this guy in the lava, he's just kind of swimming along on the riverbank, and you can only really strike him when he's striking you. If you manage to dodge his blows, his hand will hesitate, giving you an opportunity to hit him and pry off each piece of his armor, making it where your following hits hurt him even more. I like the fact that these bosses all feel very technical, especially some of the ones that are certainly very, very tough. Like this guy here, he's one that's a little bit more mid-range. You can fight these people in any order you want, but I think, much in the style of Mega Man, there's probably an order that's definitely the best. The weaknesses that hurt the least, and therefore keep you strongest the longest. So this guy here is a giant bird, obviously, but he's actually a poison master. Everywhere he goes, he's constantly hexing the ground with something that will badly infect your bloodstream. Stepping in this will eventually kill you. So simultaneously, as you're trying to dodge his magic and his blade swipes, you also need to worry about not stepping in these gross puddles. If you do somehow get poisoned, in the corner of the map there's actually a little pool of water that you can action roll in to disinfect yourself. It makes it where you end up having this delicate dance of attacking, dodging, and fleeing to cure yourself before his plague inevitably kills you. There is something extra here, which is that you're not just going against these guys completely bare bones. You do have a few spells that help you out. A lightning blade that can stun, a fire spell that makes it where you can actually deal double damage at the cost of absorbing some of your own life, and spells that'll actually cure you, potions. But here's the thing, once again, part of the curses you're undertaking in the course of your sacrifice journey is unfortunately giving up these items. By the time you get to the last boss, you have almost nothing in your inventory except for your own very broken down blades. This is something that on the surface sounds like it would be frustrating, but it's really not. Instead, it feels very invigorating. It really reminds me of those classic fairy tales I heard about as a child, of the hero constantly pushing onward, but as they get there, they're constantly being weakened, where every single time they face that next big foe, it pays a price. It rips something away from them that they can't get back, until eventually they save the day and are restored. That's how this feels like. And I really like the fact that since you only have 2 weapons, you really kind of get practice at being just such a straightforward knight. This isn't about grinding, it's not about looking up strategies, so much as it is just about learning how an enemy fights and how they operate and defeating them with your own brute force. I will say that as a downside, not all these bosses are created equal. I think a lot of these are very creatively built and are thrilling to take down, but there are certainly 2 of them that are downright frustrating because they're overly difficult. I'm only going to highlight one here so we can avoid any big spoilers, but these people. This is 2 people that are called like the Dancing Queens, and they have different elements. Basically, there's 2 separate health bars at the start for one person, and as they switch their heads out, you have to fight both of them. One has more dark magic and one has more electric magic. But as the fight continues, eventually both of them split into separate people, and then you have to fight essentially 2 mega overpowered bosses simultaneously. If you choose to fight this person last, you're going to be taking them on with almost no armor, no way to block, and no way to dodge, along with the fact that you're not even going to have any healing potions for when you do get hit. Times like this, I really feel like the game isn't super well rounded. It makes it where I feel like certain bosses, they should probably try and show you the way. I feel like the game should probably hint that take this person on first before you give up all your other sacrifices, or else you're going to be demolished by these people over and over again. Despite the fact that there is some balancing issues, this is undeniably a very fun experience, and one that I feel like everybody should definitely pick up, since we're not going to be seeing a Dark Souls anytime soon. Okay, so we've heard some good and some bad, but let's go to the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Sinners Sacrifice for Redemption a 9 out of 10. If you're somebody who's very new to the idea of action RPGs and you're looking for one that's very simplistic to try and test out the genre, I highly recommend this game. It's brutal, it's fast, it's going to murder you a million times over, but when you claim victory, you can't help but smile. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Oh, hey, I was just playing a little bit of Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP. Are you curious what I'm going to come out with next? Well, if you click this button, you'll be subscribed to be the first to know. Also, if you click over here and here, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. I promise, it was super good. Or it was really bad and I'm sure you can just make fun of me in the comments. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching.